Alright, so this is my version of the game Spyfall. If you don't know what Spyfall is, it's a social deduction game. You can watch vlogger type people on YouTube play it. I liked it. I liked watching Node, the channel Node, Node, play this game. That's actually the reason I know about it and wanted to play it so bad. Me and my friends have played it quite a bit and enjoyed it, and we want to make our own version, and this is that version. And the first significant thing about this, the reason I'm making this video, is to explain the background mechanics, the inner workings of how this particular website works, because it's actually serverless. So I have 4 tabs open here. I'm going to demonstrate how the game works if you were to play with 4 people. And there is no background server that all of these are connecting to. Rather, they're going to use math, and they're going to do some things with math to say synchronize, because I don't know anything about networking, and that's that. I'm good at math though. And then also, there's a few key differences in the way this version of Spyfall plays from other games and from the original card game. My friends and I started on spyfall.app, which is a perfectly good website. I'm not trying to compete. You might enjoy that better. But we wanted to ultimately make our own set of locations, a custom version of the game, and from that evolved all of this. So instead of one person being a host and giving an invite code to everyone, everybody gets their own code. So you can see when you open the game, you get a random number between 1 and 10,000. And what you want to do if you're sitting with your friends is take turns. Everybody should say their number, and every player needs to enter the number of everybody else playing. So you can do it one at a time. Like if I take this and paste it here, now this person's game has that number in it. But what you can also do is you can enter them separated by spaces. So if you enter multiple numbers separated by spaces like this, it'll recognize, and if there's overlap, like you already entered a number, it'll just ignore it. If you put your own number, it'll just ignore it. And if you type in something wrong, you can always click on the numbers to remove them like that. Anyway, once everybody's done that, you can verify that you've entered the numbers correctly by this little game ID at the top. So, excuse me, it says 118, Spyfall 118. And so, everybody would just enter the numbers, and then everybody would say, okay, it should be 118, so we know we're on the same page. Now, you only have to do this synchronization process one time, because then what the website's going to do on the front end in JavaScript is use math to randomize the info for as many rounds as you like. So you do this once per session, then you can play several rounds. So we'll click begin round 1 here. And you'll notice that on this round, the location is the roller rink. This player is the spy, and this player is told that they're going to have the first turn, the first question. So all of that's random. Once this round plays through, you can scroll down and do begin round 2, like this. Everybody would scroll down and click that. And now there's a different location. Now this person is the spy. This person's still going first. But now the location is summer camp. Now, if you need to change the game setup, you can do add or remove players like this. So that's if someone has to leave, if a new player joins, or if someone refreshes their page like this, because if you refresh your page on accident, which is possible, it might happen, well, now you have to start over and you have a different code. So then, everybody else can go to add or remove players like this and take out the old code like this. So this player left the game, their old code is taken out, and then everybody can enter their new code, right? And then this person can get everybody else's numbers again, they would read them out again. And then we are now on Spyfall 327. This is a 3-digit number here. That doesn't mean that there's only 1,000 possible games. There's much more than that. It's just a quick way of verifying that everybody is in the same game. So that's how the kind of serverless method works. So instead of having one host, everybody connects to each other. The games can identify themselves because they know their own code, but they also know everybody else that's playing. So they're synchronized in that way. Now, as for what makes this version of Spyfall different, there's no time limit. And the reason for that is that my friends and I sort of ignored the time limit when we had it. It's much better, I think, and even when I watched Node play this, they never ended the game because the time ran out and therefore the spy wins. If the time ran out, they would stop asking questions, but they would discuss until they could reach some conclusion on who to vote for, or maybe the spy would just say the location. To me, that's a much better, more natural way of ending the game. Your discussions and your questions should lead to a point where somebody is able to make a concrete decision that will end the round, as opposed to just running out of time. So some of our rounds do go a long time, but we prefer it that way rather than having a time limit. Also, the roles, other versions of the game will provide a set of roles to all of the non-spies. So what would be an example of that? I can't even remember the roles we had for a lot of these, but it's something like if the location was hospital, you might have a doctor and a nurse and a patient. So there's different roles that went along with each location. And the idea is that you can use those in your questions, but we never did. We had the roles at first, but we weren't really using them in our questions. They were just kind of there for fun. And then if I showed the game to new people, they were confused. It's like, well, wait, what is the role? What does it mean? Like, what do I do with that? And we're like, oh, well, you don't have to do anything with that. And they're like, well, why is it here? It's like, well, I don't know. It's just for fun. And they didn't like that. They got confused by that. So this version of the game does not have those roles. As far as locations go, there's a master set of over 60 locations, and a subset of 21 is randomly selected for each round. So the spy has to deduce between 21 locations, and they can click on them to mark them out like this. But there's a lot of variability from round to round, and it's very unlikely that you'll actually get the same set of locations twice because it's choosing a subset from that master list, and there's a lot of locations. Some of the locations are grouped as like one set with variants of really similar things. So like the mini golf course, it could be the golf course. Golf course and mini golf course are both possibilities, but you won't ever have them as two separate options in a round. What it does is it treats them as one set, if that makes sense. And if it's chosen to be listed that round, it will randomly choose between one of the possible variations. And there's quite a few examples of that. The jazz festival can also be a concert. The prison can also be jail. Roller rink can also be ice rink. Okay. Let's see what else. Service station can also be gas station. And we just did this because it's I think it's good to have that variation, and sometimes little differences in the context of the location can provide for different questions. Subway can also be train. Let's look at some other examples. Oh, let's see down here. Cathedral, I also noticed that, can be church. High school can be elementary school, middle school, or high school. So there's a lot of options there. Movie theater can also be Broadway theater. There's university and college. We have U.S. Capitol, but also the White House is an alternative to that. So those locations are grouped together because they're similar. So you won't have to worry about getting them both in the same game, but between rounds, you never know which one it's going to be. So that's just to make more variation between the games. Another interesting thing about this version of Spyfall is that you can play it with 3 people. Now, if you've never played Spyfall before, again, you should watch it on YouTube, but really you need 4 people. That's kind of understood to be the minimum. 5 is good. 6 is pretty good. More than 6, it doesn't really work well. So 4 to 6 is kind of the understood player count for Spyfall. But we ran into a lot of situations where we wanted somebody, we wanted to play and we didn't have a 4th. So this site in particular does something interesting, which is, I need to figure out which player that was. Let's see. So 3056, 906, 1748. Okay. 579. Okay. So you can play with 3 people, and if you do, the game will recognize that there's only 3 people playing, and it will reduce the size of the list to 10. And the idea here is that Yes, it's going to be really easy to identify the spy because there's only people playing, but it's also really easy to give away the location because there's only 10 options. So this is a sort of increased uh, stakes, more competitive version of Spyfall if you do want to play with 3 people. It doesn't play the same really at all as the 4-player game, 4 or more player game, but it's an option. And we have also enjoyed this. It kind of forces you to think of like near perfect questions all the time, like the absolute most clever questions you can think of, um, which can be really fun if you have success in that. Now I'm trying to think if there's anything I forgot to mention, but I think that's it. Um, Ultimately, because of the way you synchronize the games, it can be a little bit of a hassle at first. Um, I did it because I made it that way because that was the easiest way for me to make it. Um, and I do think it's interesting if people maybe know a little bit about computers, they might find that interesting that this version of the game is made serverless. But yeah, that's about it. I'll link my Spyfall site in the description. And if any of you play Spyfall, you should give it a shot. But yeah, that's all.